Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Socially Desi Show, the podcast that motivates you to live, create, and inspire. If this is your first time here, welcome. On our show, we discuss tips and strategies with our guest speakers on how to tackle problems related to personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. So hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com for more of such content. Today, I'm joined by the Chief Operating Officer at Amrita TBI, Dr. Snehal Shetty. Dr. Snehal has over 24 years of extensive technical and management experience in the fields of startup incubations, networking, and data communications. As the COO, he has been instrumental in building strong startup ecosystem that has grown to more than 190 startups. He has mentored over 130 startup ideas in the areas of technology, business strategy, finance, and marketing. Dr. Snehal, lovely to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hi, Anurag. Thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine, Doctor. Thank you so much for doing this with the Socially Desi Show. And before we even begin the episode, I would love to know about your professional journey so far and how did the engagement with Amrita University started?
Sure. So I started my professional journey as an engineer in 1997, worked for a couple of years in India before moving to the US. In the US, I had an opportunity to work as the first employee of a startup in the Silicon Valley during the e-commerce boom. This was a great experience and an eye-opener to me to understand what it takes to build a product at a startup and then take it to the market. Completed my MBA in US and moved back to India in 2012 to be with Amma, Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi at Amritapuri and work for Amrita Technology Business Incubator. I've been working as a COO at Amrita TBI since then. We grew up from about 9 startups in 2012 to about 190 startups today. In 2017, we received the National Award from the President of India for being the best startup incubator in the country.
Wow, amazing, amazing. That's an amazing journey. And currently, as I said in the start, 190 startups, and it's still growing. What do you generally look out when you look out for a startup? What are the, if you have to lay down, let's say 4 to 5 key points that you look out for an entrepreneur or a startup, what would those be?
So basically, Amrita TBI evolved from a basic incubator to more of a scale incubator today. So, but there's certain traits or aspects that we look for. One is on the problem or the solution side, and next is on the entrepreneur side. On the entrepreneur side, there's a specific mindset, that we look for in an entrepreneur. It's called the entrepreneurship mindset. We have built some kind of a framework at Amrita TBI. We call it as CGR. Basically, C stands for curiosity, goals is for goal setting, R is for risk or resilience, and just go into a little bit onto each of these points. So an entrepreneur basically needs to be very curious about his surroundings, his technology. Technology is very fast evolving, so he needs to be curious and look at the various knowledges, various ideas which are present, and listen to the customers very closely. And this will lead to creative solutions from his side. The second aspect is goals. He needs to be very decisive, very confident, clearly set out the goals, achieve it, set out the goals for himself, for his company, for his team. So this is also the second important point. The third, I think, is also very important, and it is related to risk-taking activity. So a typical person at a corporate job may not take necessarily the same type of risk which an entrepreneur needs to take. So the risk-taking ability of an entrepreneur will be quite high. And when you take risk, the chances of failure is also high. So he needs to be quite resilient when he comes across various failures and how he overcomes those failures, because the failures would be temporary. He needs to be creative to find those solutions, set the goals, and build it. So these are the various traits that we look for when you look at an entrepreneur before we incubate, or we look at when we think that a specific set of founders would be much more successful than a different set of founders who don't have all of these or some measures of these various aspects.
Wonderful, Dr. Shetty. I think this CGR philosophy, this framework, I think I can really relate to this. And I've seen a lot of conversations happening online when it comes to an entrepreneurial mindset versus a process. So, do you think that entrepreneurship is a mindset, or do you feel this is more of a framework or a process?
So we were lucky enough to have an opportunity to work with so many startups over
Hmm.
the last 9 to 10 years, and we found that both aspects are important. But if
Hmm.
we had to pick up one single factor, it would be the entrepreneurial mindset and that specific CGR framework. The reason I say that, is entrepreneurship is actually a journey with many ups and downs, many successes, many more failures in the initial years or initial months. And you need to have the right mindset to brace these various twists and turns that come your way. You start a
True. Yeah.
business, with certain assumptions. You think that this is what my customers would need. This is the product I am going to build. This is what they need, and you go with those assumptions and you build that solution or service. But those assumptions could completely go wrong. So what do you do at that time as an entrepreneur? So it's definitely a combination of both. But if I have to choose one, it would be the mindset. And give
Hmm.
a couple of
Hmm.
examples. We had a hardware startup from Bangalore. He was building a cloud computing hardware startup, and this is not the simple,
Okay.
the IoT solutions. He was building actually big hardware and was going direct, head on with the Dells and the HPs of the world, which is very difficult for a Indian
Oh.
founder
Okay.
based in India building a hardware startup. And I'm saying, this is way back in 2014 when a lot of
Okay.
entrepreneurship was quite new and very new for hardware startups. Support was very weak in the country. But this entrepreneur kept going. He built a strong team. He had about 20 years of experience in industry. He kept on looking at ways and options of not giving up, and eventually now he's quite successful. He's one of the top 10 startups at Intel. He has raised funding from Amrita TBI and also from both and also from abroad. And he has also got several customers in his pipeline. So if he
Hmm.
had
Hmm.
given up at that stage, we would have lost a good hardware startup from India. So
True. True.
that is what we have seen, and we are actually amazed by his resiliency to get through all those ups and downs and still stick to it and still go forward.
Wonderful. Yeah, I completely believe in that you need resilience and you need perseverance to thrive as an entrepreneur, especially in India. And when you do something different, right? When you talk about IT, mostly people are talking SaaS-based systems,
Correct.
softwares, but hardware, and the infrastructure in India, I don't think so. Even today, we have that much capabilities when it comes to the infrastructure for hardware type of startups. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the mindset of an entrepreneur that will actually take him far off in the journey and make that product or that service really come to life.
Yeah,
And you also spoke about, Dr. Shetty, you spoke about that you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the failures that you do initially when you start up, right?
right.
What sort of mistakes have you seen startup founders do? And why I ask this is because a lot of our audiences are solopreneurs or maybe early age startup founders, and I think this small nugget will really help them to understand what sort of mistakes they may or may be doing currently in their startup and how they can actually get rid of it or maybe improve in their journey.
Sure. One common area that we found is if he or she is a technology based startup,
Hmm.
that specific founder or group of founders, they are they really love their idea and their product or the solution they're building. And
Right.
one thing is, you never want to get married to that that specific idea or solution. And this is one common theme that we have found, especially for founders who have a technology background. They would build a specific solution, and they think that that solution is the one that customers want, because they feel that that is the real solution. That's a problem in the market. So what we have tried to do at Amrita TBI was, before you work on a solution, we tell founders to go figure out what the problem is. What is the actual problem? Not problem, what problem you are facing, but what problem your target audience is facing. Because from your angle, let us say you're building a solution for, let's say for rural India, right? And you're living in a city, you've grown up in a city, and you would think that this specific technology solution or a tablet would solve the problems in that rural India. It would be much different unless you have been that in part of the target audience. You would not understand. Understand the problem and really knowing whether that problem is really a pain point for that customer. It needs to be a pain point for the customer, or it should be an opportunity enabler for the customer. So finding the problem and then figuring out if that solution will solve that problem for that customer. So there are multiple processes involved in that. There is, of course, the Stanford's famous design thinking process, which goes through 5 stages, which is empathize. You listen, you do interviews, you seek to understand what the customer actually wants. Then there is define, which is a second very important perspective, which is you define the problem, you look at the pain points, look at the challenges. Then you come to the third stage, which is ideate. You discuss the various ideas. So let's say the solution, you define the problem as this is X, Y, Z problem, but the solutions for that could be n numbers. List out all those n number of solutions. Discuss with your founding team. Discuss with other support ecosystem enablers like incubators, accelerators, or with mentors who are in that industry. Ideate and then pick up the one best solution you think would solve that problem, and then take that, build a small prototype. Don't spend too much money to build a very expensive prototype. Do a small short prototype, and then go back and test that prototype with the end user. See if that solves that problem. If it doesn't, then you go back to your whiteboard, go back to your ideation stage, figure out which other solution will work. Means you work very closely between the end user who's going to use or buy your product and your ideas till you figure out a valid solution for that. So there's something called as lean startup methodology. I don't know if you must be very familiar with this, right? So
yes, I have the book as well.
You build, you measure. That is the concept of the lean startup methodology. So through this process, eventually you will get to a point. It may take some time initially, but you eventually come to a point where you have built a solution that the customer actually wants.
True, absolutely. And when do you recommend somebody to pivot?
You pivot the moment you know that, let's say you're testing this with, let's say, 10 users or 100 users in your target audience. And if you feel that, a majority of them don't need this solution, or the solution that you have built is not useful, that time you pivot, you iterate, you go back, change it, come back to the same set of users. Understand from the users. It should be specifically a customer-driven model and not a founder-driven model. It should be the whole solution, the solution product which you're building, should be fully customer-driven. If the customer doesn't want it, then there is no need for the product. Maybe you should look at a different product or a different solution. So you constantly pivot and you go through that experimental phase till you get the right problem solution fit. I think this is very famously said by the person back in Silicon Valley. The problem solution fit is the key to a success of a startup. I think so. That's a process that the founder should go through to get that single or single point to know that this is how I'm going to fix this solution for this customer. This is what the real pain point of the customer is.
Absolutely. And this is where I think incubators and accelerators play a huge role when it comes to helping startups figure out what exactly is the missing pieces in their in their journey. So how can startups really make the best use or maybe leverage incubators and accelerators for their business?
Okay, sure. So there are several incubators in the country today. So the
Hmm.
first generation of incubators came out under the DST government of India. They started in the late 2009, 2010, 2011. That's when all the DST level incubators came. And then starting from 2017, Atal Innovation Mission of Niti Aayog came up with that
Hmm.
set of EICs and EICs. So
Yep.
I think in India right now, probably spread across, probably close to 200 incubators that are spread across both tier one, tier two, tier three cities. So a startup founder sitting in Mumbai or Bangalore or in a remote part of Karnataka should not have an issue to get to an incubator. The key thing that the founder should look for is which incubator would solve his specific help him specifically, because there are some incubators which are focused on agriculture, some incubators like Amrita TV which is focused on technology driven solutions, others who are looking at other various aspects like energy, some are on social entrepreneurship. So he should check which incubator would specifically help him and approach some of the best incubators, and they don't need to actually do physical incubation. There's also virtual incubation available at many of these incubators. So a founder
Hmm.
could be sitting somewhere remote, but still can get all these services virtually. So these incubators have a pool of mentors, both internally and external mentors are present that will help the product or the solution of the founder. They also have multiple external partners who provide services, let's say for legal, for intellectual property, and many other aspects, accounting, for example. And they also have some of these incubators also do funding. So,
Yep.
for example, at Amrita TBI, we provide funding for hardware startups. There is a grant that's given for hardware startups called
Okay.
as Prayas. Then there is something called Entrepreneur in Residence, which is a subsistence grant for a founder. Every month he gets X amount of money for 12 months and he can work on his solution or product instead of going for a regular job. And then there
Hmm.
is, seed funding, seed investment that's given by Government of India. That can be has investment money for the startups. So there are multiple angles, and the founder can look at various aspects and see which of these aspects or which of these incubators could solve those, help him in those journeys. So incubators are typically in the early stage
Hmm.
of the startup. And then there are some scaled incubators. Amrita TB is one example. We also have IIT Bombay, IIT Madras, which are more of the scale model of incubators where they help founders who are in the little early revenue stage of their growth path. And then we have accelerators in the country also. Very few at this time. Not accelerators do not really take off much in India, but very few accelerators. But accelerators come where they are going to take that early revenue making startup and help that startup scale quickly with both customers, investors, and spread across geographic locations. So that's where the accelerator comes in. So incubators,
Hmm.
then scale incubators, I would say, and then the accelerators come in. And there are some incubators which do all three aspects also. So
Right. Right.
so it is. I mean, there is. I would say there is no shortage of ecosystem enablers in the country today versus when it was back in 2010, 11. We are advanced quite a bit thanks to the startup revolution that happened in the early part of last decade. And again, this has picked up. If you have seen post COVID,
Hmm.
you see there is a lot of unicorns coming from India. So that
True.
thing has again, that startup vibe has again started in India. So a lot of support. I think it's one of the best times to be a founder in India. You make sure you get the problem solution fit correctly. It's an excellent time. There is lot of funds available, lot of support available in the country. And if you have a great idea or solution for that problem, I think this is the best time to be a founder.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think it is. And we keep hearing about the fundings and people going unicorn and IPOs happening. So I think this gives a boost to the entire ecosystem for startups in India, and it gives the young entrepreneurs who are building their products a hope, a vision for where they want to see themselves, in the next couple of years and how they want to proceed. And I think with all the nuggets that you have shared on this episode, I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know more about, how they can approach Amrita University if they want to come and, join the incubation program. So before we wrap up today's episode, Dr. Shetty, any tips that you would like to share with the startup founders on how they should approach an incubator, and specifically if we talk about Amrita?
I think to how to approach an incubator, I think it is good to do some research on figuring out which incubator would specifically solve your problems. You can look at the DST's NSTDB DST website. These are all DST specific incubators, and you can look at AIM Niti Aayog website as well for the list of incubators and different focus areas. And that way you can choose which incubator would best suit your needs. For reaching out to Amrita University's Technology Business Incubator, we have a separate website, amritatbi.com. There's an application link there. There's a phone number as well. So you can email, you can apply on the website directly, and then someone will reach out to you to take you to the next step.
Wonderful. So, guys, go check out Amrita University TBI. We'll put in the links in the show notes below. Also, if that's okay, Dr. Shetty, we would like to add your LinkedIn link as well, so that if anybody wants to get more information and get some more guidance, then they can directly reach out to you.
Sure. Yes.
Wonderful. So with that, we come to the close of this episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Snehal Shetty, for being on the Socially Desi show today. I'm sure a lot of the entrepreneurs today would have gained good insights and some key nuggets to make sure that their startup journey starts off with a bang. Thank you so much, Dr. Shetty.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Thanks for doing this show. It's really great. I think you're really spreading out the word of podcasts all across India. I wish you the very best on your journey, on your podcast journey, and much better good things for you. Thank you very much, Anurag.
Means a lot, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So that wraps it up for today, folks. If you liked the episode, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let's go viral. Remember, our weekly podcast features episodes on personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. We would love to have Dr. Snehal on the show again in the future to talk more about the startup culture and the startup economy in India. So, if you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com. And as always, before I sign off, remember, life is black and white and everything in between.